Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Caroline Newton, one of the Europe team staff members at ICAEW, and I'm delighted to welcome members to our webinar today and to be your moderator. This is our second webinar in our Career Empowerment series, and today we're looking at resilience, transforming doubt into achievement. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. We are recording this webinar. We don't have cameras and mics on for attendees, but you are able to message us via the Q&A, and there will be some interaction that way. So do stay with us and get involved. On the call, we are joined by my colleagues, Yorgos Economides and Katrien van Varenberg, who have been instrumental in setting this up for us. So thank you, Yorgos and Katrien, as well as Christiana Diola, Director for Europe, and Vavara Kuvari and Anna Maria Piperadou, who are in Greece and Cyprus, respectively. And I am in London. And now on to our session and our presenter, who is in Spain. I'm delighted to introduce Susana Serrano-Davey. Susana has over 30 years experience as a finance professional, honing her skills at PwC and in multinational organizations at C-suite. A natural entrepreneur and career mentor, she is going to share her insights to help you, I'm sure, unlock your potential. And aside from being a passionate advocate for learning and well-being, Susana is a keen traveller. Indeed, we were just talking about it a few minutes ago. And I heard today that she travels for pleasure for 4 months of the year, and that's certainly great for the well-being. Recently, she's been in Chile, and it sounds like an amazing trip. Yorgos and I are going to be signing up to her travel blog shortly. So with the intro done, I would like to hand over to Susana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all there listening. I'm sure we have a lot of people that have signed up to this webinar, so I'm sure you're all still clicking buttons and getting ready. But I have one thing for you. If you came here today thinking, I'll just listen and do nothing, you're in the wrong place. Because what we need from you today is your collaboration. I like to make our sessions as interactive as possible, because the more we contribute, the more we can learn and share from each other's experiences. So please, please, can I count on all of you to collaborate via the chat today? And to begin getting you into practice with that, what I'd like you to do, please, in the chat, put where are you joining us from today? What country, what city, where are you joining us from? Caroline, she will be our voice, the voice of the chat today. Where are you all ringing from?
So, Susana, we've got people in London, Geneva, hi Siobhan, Kuwait, Dublin, Geraldine is in Geneva. Again, another one is in Switzerland, Zurich. Got some names coming in. Nicola in Yorkshire.
Keep them coming. Thank you. And thank you for that feedback, because as I said, the hope today is that we're going to have an interactive session, which will be more fun for you, and it will be easier for me because I'll be able to rest my voice. Now that we're getting to know each other, can I share with you the number of countries that have registered to attend this session today? All of you putting your name on the chat and putting where you're calling us from. Yorgos told me 41 countries. That's 41. That is a lot of countries. So we have a fantastic representation here today. And now that we know each other a little bit better, we will begin with the theme of today, which is all about transforming doubt into achievement. And for that, I want you to consider a very important question. And again, please answer it in the chat. And the question I have for you all is, what is that thing that you would like to do, but you believe that either you can't or it is very difficult? Please write it in the chat. It could be setting up a business. It could be leading your organization. It could be becoming a CFO or going to Chile for 5 weeks like I did recently. What is that thing you would love to do, but you just think, I can't do that, or it is too difficult? Please put it in the chat.
Okay. So far, we've got becoming a CFO, role transformation, becoming the head of finance and having more time for themselves, changing job, buying a business, becoming an entrepreneur. Just to mention to those people that are saying chat is disabled, yes, chat is disabled. Q&A, the Q&A function is the way to communicate. Thank you. Next step as the CFO and getting back into work.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone, as well, for sharing. I'm sure some of the things Caroline has been reading out have rung a bell with many of you. We all have desires that we want to achieve, but somehow there are things that hold us back. And what we'll talk today about is transforming doubt into achievement. Look at this diamond. Can you see? Diamonds are so precious. They are rare, they are beautiful, they have been around for millions of years and they're highly valued. But yet, if you think about every diamond becomes or comes from a common rock. And it's about that transformation I want to talk to you about. Some of the way I have transformed my rocks into my diamonds. And I'm sure all of you can do the same. And what's the best way to do that? The best way I can do that, like many of us, is share some of my stories. That is the one thing we're all confident about, our own experiences. So what I hope to do is through some of my stories in my career of how I became a CFO, how I set up a business, how I did other things, and managed to push away some of those thoughts that sometimes clip our wings. In 2020, I don't have time today to tell you all of my life. And surely if I told you too much, you won't want to come to another of my webinars again. So I'll leave some of it in the shelf. But in 2020, I was a successful CFO. I was at the peak of my career. I had a lot of responsibilities like many of you have. I was a busy mom as well, stressed. You know, when you go to bed at night and all you can think about is the office and the office. We've all had moments like that, haven't we? And to make things worse, I was just going through a divorce of a marriage that was ending after 25 years. Dealing with serious personal matters can have a massive impact on our ability to get on in life. I remember I thought that my kids, they were at uni already, so they wouldn't be so affected by it. But I remember the day I told my children, we sat down as a family and told them, they took it really badly, especially my son. And then COVID hit. And I'm sure many of you were in your jobs and in other jobs when COVID hit. Everything just went to pot. In the company where I was working, we had to deal with a lot of temporary redundancy. We weren't selling any money. We had things to pay. So I'm sure all of this sounds very familiar. And the point that I'm trying to make is that I was right there, rock bottom for a lot of circumstances. And to make matters worse, I became ill. I was rushed to hospital and I nearly died. And we all have moments that we think, how do I get out of here? And at that time in 2020, I had a belief, like some of the ones you have shared on the chat today. I had the belief that I was a CFO, so I wasn't able to write a book. Many of you have those beliefs, and today is about challenging some of those beliefs. 4 years on, and guess what? I was able to write a book after all. Not one, two, because I wrote it in English and Spanish. These babies contain all I wish I had known earlier in my career that helped me. So there you go. I was so focused on my CFO job and thinking that that was the person that I was, that I didn't think doing something like this was possible. And it is. Since 2020, a lot of things have happened. I'm no longer a CFO. In fact, I am now a professional mentor. I spend my life sharing my experience with people in the corporate world, supporting them on a one-to-one basis, lecturing, doing webinars and talks like the one I am doing today. And my method has three ingredients. One of them is a recipe. One of them I'm going to share with you today, the one about transforming doubt into achievement, because the method helps. The second ingredient is stories, because theories are worthless unless we bring it down to earth. We're able to connect with reality. And when people sometimes tell me they've read the book, they say, those things that you talk about in the book have really resonated with me. And the third question, and this is the third part is where I put you to work, is powerful questions. Because I can't give you or anyone the answer. I've had my life and my experience. But with powerful questions, and I will share quite a lot of them today, I can help you look at your perspective from a different angle and perhaps find new avenues, new behaviors, things that will help you deal with whatever it is, the challenge that you have, in a different way. So the method today is called Achieve because it has 7 steps. The first step is aspire fearlessly. And how do we do this? We do this quite simply by giving ourselves permission to fail. Sometimes we're so worried about that outcome, about succeeding, that we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to even try. So whatever your thing, whether it is becoming the CFO or buying a business, just give it a go. When I started writing my book, I remember I would tell everyone, my mom, my work network, my friends, I'm writing a book, I'm writing a book. I never said I was going to finish it. And if we remove the fear of finishing it, you know what happens? We start on that journey and it might take us to where we want to go. So my powerful question for you is, if I wasn't so worried about succeeding in that thing that I want to achieve, that thing you wrote on the chat earlier, wouldn't it be fun to try anyway? Because the thing is, whatever the outcome, when we try the things we want to do, we're free to choose to enjoy the process. And in that enjoyment, we also grow as people, regardless of whether we become the CFO, whether our business is successful, or whether we move to another country. It's the journey that matters. So aspiring fearlessly is really important in that journey towards transforming doubt into achievement, transforming your rocks into diamonds. Have you ever been to a dance class? I have. You feel awkward. You feel as if you had 2 left feet. Because you go in there, you think, oh my God, I can't dance. Everybody's so smooth and they do it so well. And it's actually when we stop worrying about dancing well, start relaxing and going with the flow, that we start to enjoy and dance better as a consequence. So it's like that. So ask yourself, would it be fun to try anyway? Because that might give you a clue. The second part of my method today for you is creatively express. Sometimes we're so focused on one outcome that we simply don't open our vision. We don't see the wider picture. We don't see the whole perspective. When I was writing my book, I just followed my instinct and I wrote about all the things that were important to me, things that I thought, oh, if only I had learned this earlier in my career, it would have made a difference. I would have suffered less. And I was writing about non-technical things. People, when I told them I was writing, they would think, oh, Susana is writing a technical book because she's an accountant. And creatively expressing yourself has to do with looking beyond that. I have a question for you all. Why did the accountant, any accountants in the room? I guess if we could see the cameras, there would be a few hands going up. Why did the accountant break up with the calculator? Does anybody know? I will tell you. Because they had too many irreconcilable differences. This is one of many bad jokes that heard in my career about accountants, whether we wear grey suits, whether we are boring. But you know what? As people, as individuals, we are far more than just our technical training. We are able to do a lot of things. For instance, I discovered it 3 years ago that I can write poetry, despite my belief that I wasn't at the time a creative person. So I would encourage you all to ask yourself, am I focused just on one vision of myself? Or do I allow myself the opportunity to explore other interests, to explore other things? Because that's really important. Or simply ask yourself, what am I really passionate about? We all have things that we're passionate about. And many of you, I'm sure, are successful career people because you are passionate about your career. But you can be passionate about more than just a single thing in your life. And it's through widening that perspective by experimenting with different things that we can move forward to look for our diamonds and not just be simple rocks. H for hold back. Let it be. How many of us are often in a hurry to get that promotion, to become a CFO, to move, to do all those things? But when you think about it, it takes time. It took me many years. I won't tell you, although Caroline gave you a hint earlier. It took me many years to become a CFO. It took me 4 years to set up, build and sell a business, which I'll tell you about in a moment. It took me 2 whole years to write and publish a book. And yet sometimes when we only look at the present moment in our career, we're so frustrated. It feels as if we're not moving, but in fact, life continues to work. And it's important for us to recognize that things take time. And also, if we're not in such a hurry, if we give it time, things happen in the background. New opportunities occur. You find new people that suddenly you meet that might help you on your journey, or you find a new passion. So holding back is really important. And now I think it's time to get you all to work. Caroline, what we're going to do, as you know, and we will tell everyone so you're aware, we will break you in a moment into breakout rooms. So you will go into small groups. But before we go into the breakout room, what I'd like you to think about is these questions so that you can tell each other, perhaps what is this discussion so far made you think about? What are you realizing? Or what are the things that perhaps you hadn't considered before? So think about those questions that I mentioned earlier. If I wasn't so worried about succeeding, would it be fun to try anyway? Am I focused on a single outcome, or do I allow myself the ability to explore? What am I really passionate about? So off you go. You can all go into your rooms. If you have any questions, if it's not clear what I've asked you to do, by all means, please put it on the Q&A section and ask so I can respond. And if you're all happy that you know what kind of discussion you have to do, please, you can accept to go in your room when our colleague creates those little spaces for discovery. And of course, I hope you enjoy meeting each other as well, because we miss sometimes being able to connect on a smaller format and live sessions. To your rooms, and welcome back. And of course, as I said, as I promised, as I threatened, I was going to put you to work. So will you please share on the chat any of the thoughts you have exchanged? Yorgos was telling me about one of his wishes that perhaps he can tell us in a minute as well. But what are the people telling us today? Caroline, is there anything on the chat?
Sure. In the Q&A, please. Well, the room that I went into before, while people were putting some things on the Q&A, we talked about how we might handle things, and it's about sort of taking things step by step, kind of in a bite size. There's also that question about rushing to see where we get to rather than taking a bit of time. And then we asked about what are we passionate about? And maybe it's just, it's nearly the summer and people are feeling a bit fatigued, but are we passionate about anything? Should we be passionate about ourselves? How do we get that passion? So can you help us with that?
Yes.
And then I've got a few other questions, a few other points. People interpreted holding back differently. And it's about the limits of one's ability to take a leap of faith. And earlier, I think even before we went into the breakout, somebody mentioned there's a fear of having a big mortgage and bills and needing to pay them, basically. So if what you want to do fails, how are you going to pay those bills? I think we can all feel about that.
Lots of things for there to comment on. I'll take a few. The one that really, well, everything strikes with me because I have been there. We have the people in this room, in this session today, we all have a lot of things in common. Whether we happen to be members of the ICAEW or we're just ordinary people, we all have a lot in common. And I think something that happens to us as we grow, mature, especially as we start to build that persona that we have, professional persona, that takes us a lot of years to build, we take ourselves ever so seriously that we disconnect with that person that we once were, that child. So one question that you can ask yourself is, do I take myself too seriously? Or do I allow myself to have fun? And that sometimes means connecting with just something as simple as going for a walk and thinking, wow, I'm crazy about flowers when I go to the countryside. And that looking at the flowers and smelling a flower really helps me connect with Susana, the young Susana, the innocent Susana, not Susana, the mentor or the CFO. And I think we all have ways to connect with our inner being, not the, oh, it's even that something is happening. Can you see it on the screen? I didn't do that on purpose, by the way. So I think find a way to connect with that person that is that tingly thing inside you. And the other thing is about the bills and the fear. When I experienced it myself, and I talk about this with my mentees very often. We have sometimes become trapped in the tower that we have built for ourselves. That tower that has a car, a mortgage, children at private school, and all the things that we build in life. And I think for me, I was lucky, as I said to you at the beginning, I had a health problem that took me to hospital. And I was in the ICU unit and thinking, what do I really want to do with my life when I get out of this place? If I get out of this place. So I was lucky that life gave me that wake-up call to start making different decisions in my life. But I think every one of us is free to start making micro different decisions every day to get us closer to getting out of that tower. Because sometimes we buy things to treat ourselves because I'm working so hard that of course we need to spend so many thousands of pounds or euros or whatever your currency is to have a holiday, or I need to treat myself to, and I think those are decisions. We are free individuals, and there are many things we can't get away from because we have responsibilities, but there are many things that we can do differently. If we have too much burden on that, then start making different decisions, whether that is eating out a little bit less often or having I travel, as you said, Caroline, I'm very lucky and I travel about 4 months a year. And sometimes when I'm traveling, I spend the same amount of money as when I am at home. So I believe that many people have that. You say, oh, you need thousands of pounds to travel the world. Well, you do need money, but you may not need as much as you think, depending on what choice of activities, for instance, you choose to do. So I challenge that. What other things I've forgotten? There was something else that caught my eye of what you mentioned in the chat. I can't hear you. You're on mute, Caroline.
How long have we been doing this now? So one of the things that I've just seen in the chat that Catherine spoke about is that they were talking about how you can interpret aspiring fearlessly in different ways. What might I regret not doing or doing later in life? And then the other one was actually a similar thing, people interpreting holding back differently.
Yes, okay. Well, aspiring fearlessly to me means accepting that we're not going to succeed at everything. And what's really important in life is to have a go. Because to me, if you've had a go, if you want something and you've tried, at least you've tried. I've done many difficult things in my life that at the time I didn't think I could do. I arrived in England when I was 21, not speaking the language, and yet I went to university there and became a chartered accountant, which I'm sure you all know is quite an achievement, as you shared that. I've set up a business, I have done many difficult things, and the one thing that I think always accompanied me was thinking, why not? I just give it a go, because that's better than not doing anything. Aspiring fearlessly to me doesn't mean getting rid of our fears altogether. It means acknowledging them and thinking, yes, I am afraid of failing. I am worried about this, but I'm going to stay with that fear and give that step forward. And in terms of holding back, to me, what it means is not being so impatient. I don't know about you, but certainly my personality style, I have always been in such a hurry to do everything. Have you ever been in a situation that you think, oh, I want to find a new job, and you just want to find a new job, or I want to go to Chile like Yorgos is going to do, and he just wants to go there. And I think there is an element in life, and I guess it's part of becoming mature and my grace, that has helped me learn to enjoy the wait, because it's not necessary to get there quickly. There is a lot, like you're drinking this cup of tea now, and isn't it lovely to take your drink and enjoy your cup of tea rather than off we go? So that's my point. But anyway, I think this is a good point to continue, because I want to get through the rest of the topics. But please continue to have that interaction. It makes me very happy to hear people interacting in the Q&A, and keep them coming. And by all means, Caroline, interrupt me whenever you want with any comments, okay?
Thank you, Susana, will do.
The next step, I innovatively organize. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is just take a fresh look at what you have. I alluded to earlier to the fact that I set up a business, and I'll tell you more about it. In 2007, just before the financial crisis, what does Susana decide to do? Set up a business. My goodness, I couldn't have chosen a worse time to start, but there I went off to set up my business. Over a period of 4 years, I worked so hard. This business was like my book now. It was my baby at the time. I gave it all my time, all my energy. And over 4 years, I created a business. It was an accountancy practice that went at the beginning from just me and a laptop to a team of 12 people and over 200 clients. So I'm sure many of you in the audience today have your own practices, or are thinking about sailing off into the distance and becoming your own boss. And for me, that journey was very powerful, and I learned a lot of things. But after 4 years, I remember sitting in my office one day and thinking, wow, I've done this. I've done it. I had a viable business. I had a lot of clients. I had a reputation. But the reality was that I wasn't really being rewarded fairly for the effort that I had put into that business. So I innovatively looked at my situation, and I thought, okay, I haven't failed, but what can I do with this? This wasn't exactly what I was expecting. So I picked up the phone and I rang my previous boss, the company that I used to work for, and I said, Joseph, can I buy you lunch? I have a business proposition for you. So off we went to have lunch, and I sold him the business as a going concern. So my point here about innovatively organizing has to do with just taking a fresh look at your situation, because sometimes we can achieve an outcome that it may not be exactly what we had planned, but it's still a really fantastic outcome. I was very happy to pass on my business, to leave my team still employed under a bigger firm. And now for me to be free again, to go back to the UK and do all the wonderful things I did afterwards. But yeah, if I'd stayed closed on, I need to make this business succeed, I need to make it reward me better, which is what I wanted at that time, perhaps I would still be there it wasn't a mediocre business, it was a good business, but I just couldn't, I felt I could do more with my life. And I think you have to follow that. And that's some of the decisions that I've taken through my career, has been to do with, and what else? What can I do? Just getting outside of that comfort zone. So the questions for you about innovatively organizing is, what can I do in regards to that thing you talked about earlier in your chat, so that thing you think that is difficult? What can I have? What do I have already that can help me get closer to that? Have I considered alternatives, or am I just looking at this objective in a single way? Because you'd be surprised when you start to take a fresh perspective, you might be able to do a lot of interesting things, even if it's not exactly what you had in mind when you set off to achieve your objective. And now we move into E, and I'll move here so you see the beautiful birdies that I have behind me. E is for embracing support. Why is it that we all think either we can't do certain things or that we have to do it alone? I think it's human nature, but in fact, asking for help is not only smart, but it's very enjoyable. Who in the room doesn't like to help? Whenever somebody comes to you and says, Yorgos, can you help me do this? Or Caroline, what is your response? You're up for it. One of the conversations I have very often with the people I mentor is, look at your network and who in your network can become your sponsors, your allies. People can help you elevate yourself in the light of others, in the light of others, and also giving you advice and support. Asking for help is super important. When I was writing my book, people think writing a book is difficult, and in fact it isn't, or it's not as difficult, or it's not the only difficult thing. In my case, the difficult thing was the period that came before publishing it, of correcting it. You know how many people helped me with my babies that are back there? 22 people. 22 people read my book before it was published and gave me feedback. How generous is that? And one of the key zero readers was my new husband, Carlos, because I didn't die that day at the hospital. As you can see, I'm moving and quite alive and well. But I also found love again after my traumatic divorce. And he said to me, he would say, I remember when he was getting to the end, he was quite tired by now because it's a big job asking somebody to be a zero reader. He said, oh, he's feisty, Spanish, very feisty, and said, chapter 15 is rubbish. I would throw it away if I were you and start again. And I'd go to him and say, okay, Carlos, just tell me exactly, what is your problem with chapter 15? What is it that makes you uncomfortable? And then he would explain. And then I would change perhaps a couple of sentences and a few words, and he'd read it and say, oh, it's just right. So asking for help, it's very important in your journey. And the question for you is, who is the person that could really help me in that thing I would like to achieve, whatever it is you thought at the beginning of this presentation? And how can they help me? Because for sure, there are people out there, whether that is your line manager, a colleague, your husband, somebody can help you, but yet we just need to put our hand up and ask for help. V for validate your journey. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that I think sometimes we are so caught up in, I call it the hamster wheel. We're so busy. we're just running and running and running and running, and we don't have time to think, let alone stop to even dream of what is that thing that we'd like to achieve. But something that, in my experience, is essential, not just for achieving things, but for your own well-being and health, is to take time to just stop and think and reflect. Because if we don't do that, we may be off on a tangent forever. I have made a lot of changes in my life, a lot of changes in my career, many of them that were disasters, many of them that have been extreme successes. But the thing that helped me guide through that maze was asking myself the right questions. And I do that even now. I do it with the help of a journal. I work, when I mentor people, I always recommend that they use journaling as a tool. And it's very, very powerful. If you can spend only 5-10 minutes a day talking with yourself, expressing yourself, thinking, you'd be surprised the amount of things that pop up on those pages, only with the opportunity to think and reflect. Even when we do mentoring, I always say, I don't have a magic wand to solve your problems, but just by being there, by creating that space to consider the challenges, to think about the issues, to look at new solutions, hey, presto, they pop up. So what I recommend that you do is, as I have done, just be prepared to spend time with yourself, even if that feels uncomfortable sometimes, because we're not used to that. I often ask people, do you spend a lot of time alone? Do you do things for yourself? Do you just sit down and have a cup of tea without doing nothing every once in a while? And the answer to that question quite often is, no, I'm too busy. I'm always trying to do things. And that is not very good for your health, and is also not very good for guiding you on your life journey. So the question to you is, do I take time to reflect? Do I consider my situation? Do I explore my thoughts? I'm just checking the time. I think what we could do is, before we close, any comments on the chat on these 3 parts of innovatively organizing?
So while people are putting a question on the chat, there is one that's in there. What questions should we ask ourselves when journaling? So get those ideas to pop up that you mentioned.
Yes, there are sets of this. This is called an integration journal. So you can do it through fixed questions. You might, for example, every day want to ask yourself, what am I really proud of today? And you can also ask yourself, what did I learn from the thing that didn't go as I expected? What did I learn from the thing that didn't go as expected? Just 2 questions. What am I proud of today? And what did I learn? But what I tend to do when I'm working with people on a mentoring basis, we change the questions depending on their circumstances and what is the challenge. So for instance, a common challenge, I'm sure some people might be nodding if I could see them on the screen, is, how do I improve my work-life balance? We're all, oh my God, I have been there. We're all overworked, exhausted, continuing to work after dinner, children that have to be taken to school and gone to plays. And the last person on your list is you. So you have time for your job, you have time for your children, you have time, but not for yourself. So a very important question is, what did I do today just for me? What did I do today just for me? Even if it's something as simple as sat down to have a cup of tea, or I just listened to my favorite podcast on my way to work. Because I think embedding small gifts to ourselves is a really good way to take care of that part of us that is important and regaining our balance. And the other one, I'll give you one more. I love this, by the way. A lot of people struggle with delegation. because they think, oh, I need to do it because my team are not really able to, or I can't train them. And I think there may be a lot of truth behind all of that. But there is also something that is true, is that many of us, and I was guilty of that once, are very perfectionist. We are utterly perfectionists. And what it means is that we're not letting other people have a go, because if things are not done our way, then we don't think they're good enough. And that's not sustainable, because over time, something is happening again in my screen, because it's not sustainable to do that. So the question you might want to ask yourself in your journal to work with that is, what did I let go of today? Because for you to regain your balance and to start delegating to other people, you have to start letting go of things, whether that might be not suddenly responding to an email where it's not really strictly necessary to respond. As a manager, I think many times we receive an email and we create a battle for ourselves when it's not strictly necessary. Or it may be that we insist on, I don't know, at home we insist of having all the cushions tidy before leaving the house. And the reality, we have to let go of things. So that's a really powerful question to help you start dropping things, either to stop doing them or passing them on to other people.
Thank you, Susanna. That's incredibly helpful. Saeed asks, how do we remain persistent to follow our goal? And can I add one personally? How do we remain consistent to follow our goal?
That's a really important question, actually, because I think there is a thing to do with balance. I think it's, as we've discussed, it's great to have a goal and say, right, this is what I'd love to achieve, and I'm going to work towards that. That it's important, and remaining working on it and becoming and being persistent is important to get you there. But on the other side of the spectrum, I think we need to have a reality check, because I don't think it's healthy either to pursue things at all costs. And there comes a point that you need to look in the mirror, as I've suggested, and think, okay, where am I? What do I have? Is this the right thing for me? And do I still want to continue? Because quite often as well, I think we may be guilty of pursuing objectives that we set for ourselves 10 years ago, even when we were teenagers. But we change as people. So it could be that thing, quite often when I'm mentoring, my mentees would say, well, Susana, if I don't make it to CFO, I will have failed. Does that ring a bell with anyone listening today? And I say, will you really have failed if you don't become CFO? No, because we need to evaluate what's right for us and what's the right objective for us at different checkpoints in our life. And things change, and our desires change, and who we are changes, what we're passionate about changes. So in the answer to the question, I would say, just keep going, but recap to make sure that that is the right thing for you still, rather than continue to pursue something that may not be what's right for you anymore. Excellent. Let's continue then. And E, we've come to the end. We come to the final letter of achieve. And E stands for evolve without limits. Honestly, that's another story, but I dropped out of school when I was 15. And look at how life changes. Over the years, I went to England, became an accountant that I'm very proud of. I've worked internationally, I became a CFO, I set up my business, I wrote a book. But the thing is, one thing my career has taught me is that I never thought it would turn out that way. If you'd asked me only 3 years ago, would I be sitting here or standing here talking to you today? I wouldn't have thought that's possible. So the question for you here is, am I open-minded? Do I question my assumptions? Because if you stop closing your mind on a single outcome, beautiful things can happen. You can do things that you never thought might be part of your life journey. But unless we break our assumptions and say, well, I am Susana, I'm not just an accountant, I'm not just a CFO, I'm not just a mother, you may not discover things that are very, very valuable. So there you are. There's my method for you that I hope it's helped you get that thinking heads on. Aspire fearlessly, creatively express, hold back, innovatively organize, embrace support, validate your journey, and evolve without limits. I hope that is helpful, because all you need to do is take your rock. Can you think, all those of you thought about something, whether that was becoming a CFO or buying a business or moving to a different country or traveling and working like I do, look at your rock, think of that idea and ask yourself, and why not turn it into a diamond? Because we all can. Thank you. Caroline, you're on mute again.
Again, there we are, and why not? Susana, that was a great session. And I was just thinking of asking myself what I'm going to let go of, and to make sure that I'm recapping my goals. And I'm sure there was lots of other things there that I just need to think about as you shared your Achieve method. So I just wanted to say, Susana, thank you very much for your insights and your enthusiasm. And of course,
do we have time for a couple of comments before we close?
sure. Let's just see. Well, I think mostly everyone's saying thank you very much. It was most inspiring. And that's exactly it. I don't know if there's any other comments other than it was a great session and very useful. And we will be sharing the recording, because like you, I think I would love to revisit this session and pick up on the things that I may have just missed out on as you were talking. But thank you. Muchas gracias from Mark.
And I'd like to give everyone the opportunity, if you want to hear more, we will be giving away some books. And Caroline, you will tell them how to do that.
Exactly. I'm so sorry. You have just corrected me on what we were planning to ask members to do. So I was obviously just flabbergasted by the presentation there. So let me just send you in the chat that I can send. So everybody should see this chat. This is a way to sign up for Susana's mailing list and the opportunity to win the book that she's written. Wherever you are, she'll get that posted out to you, whether you would like it in Spanish or in English. And also we'll make sure that this is circulated with the recording too, Susana, so people can sign up for your insights there. And as Anastasia says, thank you so much for the inspiration.
My pleasure.
And thank you as well to Jorgos and Katrine for organising the session again, and for everyone else who has joined us. And thank you so much for getting involved, come from far and wide today. So the last thing, apart from signing up for Susana's prize draw, so to speak, there will be a short survey as we close, and we look forward to seeing you on September the 26th when we look at negotiating in finance. So thank you everyone, and have a great summer if I don't speak to you.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for participating. That was great.
Thank you, Susana.